Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Racing Rundown. My name is Aidan Molinaro, horse racing analyst. I'm here with Liam Molinaro, who's a racetrack announcer. We are going to break down the Bluegrass Stakes and also give our picks out for this Saturday's races, major stakes races at Oaklawn Park and Keeneland as well. Liam, first off, let me just start it by asking you, what did you think about that Bluegrass, and just give me your overall thoughts.
Yeah, obviously Burnham Square with that huge last to first win. You know, East Avenue made the lead like I thought he would with the connections putting blinkers on. He ran a lot better than I thought he would, though. Just hanging on, just only got beat by a neck. And really kind of disappointing performances from, Owen Almighty, River Thames, Chancellor McPatrick. Burnham Square was really the only one really finishing down the stretch. I know there was a lot of talk about how slow they ran the last 3 furlongs of that race, and maybe that helped East Avenue. He obviously gets into the Derby field now. He's got 60 points, so he will be in the starting gate. So that's a big pace presence as well with Rodriguez now. So a lot of conversations about who's going to be on the lead in the Derby. But Burnham Square with a huge last tune-up for the Derby, and he's in top form going into that race. And yeah, it was a huge performance from Burnham Square.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was interesting that East Avenue obviously putting on the blinkers. I thought their connections were going to try to send him away from there real hard out of the gate, and they obviously did. Machado's kind of quarter horsed him in that first eighth of a mile to get to the first turn, and especially knowing he had Owen Almighty to his inside in the 4 post, and he was breaking out of the 5. So obviously, I think we've figured out now that East Avenue is a one-trick pony. He needs the lead. Once he gets the lead, he gets very brave and fights on. I mean, what was the half mile? It was 46 and change, and he was still able to stay on and just barely get nailed at the wire. So imagine he holds on by a head. We're having a whole other conversation as far as the Derby picture. So I thought the horse ran huge, but like you said, him and Rodriguez being in there in the Derby really changes the picture, because I believe it sets up for the closers a lot nicer than it would have before then, because obviously you'll have Rodriguez and East Avenue both sending hard on Kentucky Derby Day. But no, I thought Burnham Square ran a huge effort. I just, in my pick, obviously, River Thames, he sort of disappointed, like you said. He was sitting in the 3rd spot there behind East Avenue, and he was about 6 or 7 lengths back, so he really had no excuse. He could have closed into that pace if he was able. But River Thames, for me, kind of disappointed, sort of regressed. Maybe looks like a horse that kind of needs just a mile, maxes out. Maybe 7/8 to a mile would be his perfect distance for Todd Pletcher there. But obviously, River Thames, maybe we could see him back in the Pate Mile. I know the connection said that they're not committed to the Kentucky Derby yet, so they may go, they may not go. We shall see in the future. But what do you say we move on now to handicap? This weekend's races here. We'll start off with the Lexington Stakes. So obviously the Bluegrass was the last major prep for the Derby, but the Lexington, a minor points prep race for the Kentucky Derby, goes off this weekend at Keeneland. There are some interesting contenders in here, though, including a Mike McCarthy trainee by the name of Bullard, who's kind of played second fiddle to journalism throughout his 3-year-old season here. I definitely like him, but I'll get to that after I kick it to you, Liam. Why don't you let the viewers know what you think about the Lexington and how it'll go down?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting race. It's always the last points race on the Kentucky Derby Trail. None of these horses are going to be in the field this year, even with a win. I do think there are some talented 3-year-olds in here who maybe could get better down the line this year. I'm looking at the number 8 Hypnus on top for Kenny McPeak. This horse was real impressive first time out at the fairgrounds. Next time out, they threw him to the Wolves in the Rebel, and he hit some traffic. He was finishing late in that race, and then they immediately went to the Louisiana Derby, where he's a disappointing 7th. I thought that race wasn't as bad as it looked on paper. He was falling. He kind of had to go wide. He was following the winner of that race, Tistastic, down the backstretch, and he kind of had to go wide as Tistastic got a better path. But nonetheless, he disappointed in that performance. But I think he can bounce back in the Lexington here. I think this is a big class relief. They also do put blinkers on, so maybe they want him to be a little more forward than he has in the last 2 starts. I'm looking at the number 7, Prater, for second. This horse actually beat Sovereignty his second start out last year as a 2-year-old, and then he was on the shelf till March 9th of this year at Gulfstream, and he won by 7.5. He only turned back a 79 buyer, though, but there wasn't a whole lot of quality horses behind him, so maybe he just did what it had to be done that day. And then I'm looking at the 6, Gosger, for third. This son of Nyquist has been improving in each of his first 2 starts. And I think he'll like this trip. I think he'll get a stalking trip. I don't know how good he is at the moment. I think he's one that's going to need to develop, but that's why I threw him underneath. So for me, it was Hypnus on top, trying to get him to bounce back. Luis Saez also does jump aboard and replaces Brian Hernandez, which I think is interesting. And then I have the 7, Prater second, and then the number 6, Gosger third. So it's 8-7-6 for me in the Lexington.
Okay, Liam, I like those picks. I think it's interesting you didn't mention Bullard, which I want to point out because I am very high on this horse going into this race, so it's interesting. But I also like Hypnus. I'm including him underneath. But the reason why I have Bullard on top, there's a few reasons here. I think this could be what the son of Gunrunner, purchased for $675,000. This could be what he wants to do, 2 turns all along. I think this could be it for him. He hasn't run since January 4th. He is coming off the layoff, but Michael McCarthy 20% off a layoff of 61 to 180 days. So I like that percentage there in his corner. I also like that Reese Blee comes out to Keeneland to ride him in this spot. And obviously his last start, like you said, he got beaten. He was third behind Barnes, beaten 6 lengths. But I don't think that was the Barnes that we saw in the Santa Anita Derby. That was the Barnes we saw in the San Vicente and the San Felipe, running those big buyers. That was peak Barnes. So I think Bullard, if he can repeat one of those performances, also run back to his maiden breaking score and the Bob Hope win where he beat another Baffert in Matticat Road, I think he's just running against classy horses. And another reason I like him is that this feels similar to me, kind of the Rodriguez conversation. Like, how is the California 3-year-old crop going to translate to the East Coast, right? Well, Rodriguez, we saw what he did. He went to New York. He ran against some of the top contenders there in New York, and he showed them, his class, and his class pulled through. So I think Bullard, we could possibly see a similar performance, and I really do like that morning line. If he's 9-2, closer to the 5-1, I'll definitely consider playing him myself for sure. So I like Bullard on top for me. I think he can sit very tactical. In the first quarter mile, he was only 2 lengths off of Barnes, who went 22 and change, and then 45 flat for the half in that San Vicente performance. So look for Bullard to be pretty close, up near the lead in this Lexington Stakes on Saturday. Underneath for me, I have Bullard on top. But I went for Hypnus there in second. Hypnus, the number 8 horse that you mentioned, I think he is sort of a plugger, and I'm not sure at that maiden breaking performance first out. His lone win was on a sloppy track there at Fairgrounds, so maybe he just does really like the slop. And his next 2 performance, he just sort of is lackluster. He didn't really get into it. Maybe that's why the connections are putting the blinkers on, trying to get him into the race sooner. There's also a jockey change going from Brian Hernandez to Luis Saez. Hypnus, I'd say, was a very safe bet to hit the board here in this spot in the Lexington. I think he's also getting a class drop, like you mentioned, in here, running in the Rebel and the Louisiana Derby the last 2 times. He's not facing any coal battles, any Tiz-tastics in here, so I think Hypnus can definitely plug on and hit the board. The 7 horse, another one you mentioned, Prater. I'm going to put that horse in the 3rd spot here. Prater goes out for trainer Chad Brown. This horse obviously is 2 for 3 lifetime. Another really lightly raced horse going into this spot. The only reason I don't like him is they came home in about 25-4 there. If my math is correct there at Gulfstream Park in his last allowance win. He did win by 7. He was very impressive, but I just think he's going to have to close faster than he did that day. Maybe he can. As you know, he ran a 90 buyer, 2 back there. So if he can run back to that, he could be very dangerous in this spot. But that morning line at 2-1, I definitely like Bullard at 9-2 there over him as far as the price. And I think Bullard definitely has the class and the talent to compete with these. So if Bullard likes the 2 turns, like I think he will, I think he's going to be tough in this spot. So it's going to be Bullard over Hypnus over the 7 Prater for me in the Lexington lane.
Yeah, one thing I did want to mention about the number 3 Bullard, I'm not ruling him out in this spot. I just think, first time out, he beat a horse in Kalia Bay, who we obviously saw at Pleasanton was very disappointed in the Bay Meadows Juvenile. And then second time out, he beat Matticat Road and McKenzie Street very impressively. And then he gets, I would have liked to seen him run better in the San Vicente. I know that was Barnes going well. He obviously hasn't run good as of late. I'm just going to take a stand against Bullard in this spot. I do think he's going to be a little lower than that 9-2 morning line, but if he's higher than that, I definitely think it's a fair shot. If you like the horse, I would definitely take a shot on him at that price. But at this current price, I'm just going to take a stand against. And the number 4, Rolando, and the number 9, Touchy, are both likely to be scratched out of this spot. They ran in the rescheduled Lafayette that was run this Monday, and I don't think either of those trainers are going to run back on 6 days rest. This is likely to get stretched down to a 7-horse field as it stands right now.
That's a good point too. Mention the 2 scratches for sure. Forgot to mention that. We will now, what do you say we go on to the Jenny Wiley now and dive into that one?
Yeah, on top for me and the Jenny Wiley, I'm going to take a little bit of a shot with a price. That's the number 8, Sacred Wish, for George Weaver. Okay. I think this mare's just getting better with every start. I really do. Ever since they switched her to the turf, she's just been really sharp as of late. She won the Matriarch in late December at Del Mar. And that was a big second in the Pegasus filly mare turf, just getting nosed out by Be Your Best, who's also in this race. But no, I just think she's getting better with every start. And if I can get anything close to that 8-1 morning line, I think that's really interesting. And then I went to the number 1, Excellent Truth, for Chad Brown. He's won 6 out of the last 7 runnings of this race. This horse comes in from France, hasn't run since July. We don't know too much about this mare. But she draws the inside, gets Flavian Pratt, and the trainer that's won 6 out of the last 7 runnings of this race. So I'm going to put her underneath for second. And then for third, I went to the number 9, No Show, Sammy Joe. This is a very interesting horse. Last time out, we saw her in November at Aqueduct running 11 furlongs in the Long Island Stakes. Also got beat by Be Your Best, who's in this race. I think she is going to like the cutback here. I don't know if 11 furlongs was ideally her, best distance. She's got a real serious turn of foot. Gets Manny Franco in the irons, who I think is a really underrated jockey. And if you can get anywhere near that 15-1, I think you should take it. So it's the 8, Sacred Wish, over the 1, Excellent Truth, over the number 9, No Show, Sammy Joe, and the Jenny Wiley.
Liam, I definitely like your picks. For me, this race, the Jenny Wiley, obviously as a racing fan, I remember Tepin winning this race multiple times. One of the best turf female milers in the United States that I can remember of. Her enable horses like that, she's definitely up there for me. So the Jenny Wiley, I think the years after Tepin, it kind of downgraded for me. It felt like the fields weren't as good as they usually were for that grade 1 status. But this year there's definitely a difference. So there's so many fillies in here that I feel like could be future Tepins. And like you said with Sacred Wish, she's getting so much better. I mean, you just go down the list, you look at the form of this race, and there's easily 4 or 5 fillies that you could see winning this race, and neither, I don't think you or me would be shocked. Like 4 or 5 of them could win in here, Sacred Wish being one of them. I ultimately settled on the 2-horse, though, Choiseul, I think I'm saying that right, the number 2 horse with the French pronunciation there, Choiseul, for trainer Simon Crisford. This horse is coming over from Maidan, made the last 2 starts there in Dubai, won both races. The 2 back in the Cape Verde Stakes was very impressive, winning by 5 lengths. Obviously, both those fields were 5-horse fields, but I went and watched those races back. And her ability to just shut down in the first half of the race and then just explode in the second half, that European turn of foot, I think she possesses it. She's not the only one that has it in this race, like you mentioned, Sacred Wish, and the 9-horse No Sammy Joe that also has that turn of foot. So that's why I'm saying this is a bang up of a race. I could see 4 horses coming down to the wire. They all love to do their best running in the last quarter mile, but I'm going to settle on the 2-horse. I think she's very impressive. This horse loves to win. She's 7 for 19 lifetime, and then 2 for 2 in 2025. She's just super sharp. I agree with you. The 2 and the 8 are very similar for me. They're both coming into their own. They're both getting very sharp as of late. So the 2 on top for me. Over the 7-horse, Kehoe Beach, who I also wanted to mention, 7-2 on the morning line, I feel like is very ambitious for a morning line price with this horse. 7-2 is pretty short, but I like this horse underneath because I think she's getting better. 4 for 7 lifetime. I also like that she has a 5-length victory at Keeneland. Granted, that was an allowance race, so a lot lesser competition than she's going to be facing. I like that Dettori stays in the saddle. Wesley Ward training, sending this one out. And I think putting her in this spot, Wesley Ward, is showing that He really believes in this horse. She last time ran in the Mrs. Revere at Churchill. She also is coming off a layoff, hasn't run since November, but I think Kehoe Beach can do it here. Wesley Ward has a great percentage off the layoff at 23%. And I also think she's going to make the running. I mean, I don't know about you. You could definitely address this after me, but I really think she's going to be in front. So if they let her just sit there, I mean, all the other mares have a huge turn of foot, but all their jocks tend to sit off in the early part of the race. So if Kehoe Beach goes out there and she's in front by 2 and she sets a slow half, she gets something like 47 change, 48. Who's to say she doesn't just spurt away from them on the turn? You never know with these mares that are improving. Obviously, she's taken a massive step up, but you never know. She could just be working her way up the ladder to the grade 1. But Kehoe Beats in the second spot for me under the 2 horse. The 8 horse Sacred Wish, your horse that you mentioned, I have in that third spot. She's a filly that comes from a little bit farther back than the other 2 I mentioned, but she always comes with her run. Sacred Wish was very impressive. We got to see her win at Del Mar in the Matriarch there. She was impressive that day. And last time, just almost could have been the best horse in the race. She had to go 8 wide and just barely got beaten next. So Sacred Wish, another one that is definitely a win candidate, but I'm going to put her underneath here in the third spot. Like you said, with that 8-1 morning line, if she's anywhere near that, she's going to provide a lot of value for the show wagering and your trifecta wagering or exactas. Definitely include Sacred Wish on your tickets. She hardly ever runs a bad race. Similar to a lot of other fillies in here in this spot. So Liam, that's the top 3 for me. Choisewa over Kehoe Beach over Sacred Wish in the Jenny Wiley. What do you say we move on to the card at Oaklawn and break down those stakes races on Saturday?
Yeah, let's do it. We can get
right
right into it with the Count Fleet Sprint. It goes as race number 8 on Oaklawn's program this Saturday. We do have a heavy favorite here in the number 3 Booth. And this horse is just getting really sharp. 4-year-old Senamatoli has won the Commodore and the Whitmore in the last 2 starts, running a 105 and a 107. Buyer speed figures for both of those starts, respectively. Eric Asmussen's been aboard for both of those, and he is going to be my top pick in here. You know, whenever there's a 3 to 5 horse on the morning line, I always, scan the field, see, how can I beat this horse? And I really couldn't find any way to beat this horse. I wasn't really in love with any horse in this race. I do like the number 4 Tejano Twist. He's kind of a horse that comes off the pace. I just don't see anyone who could challenge Booth on the front end. And Steve Asmussen said in an interview the other day, the horse is very confident. He's been doing better than ever, even after those last 2 huge performances. So I don't see any way they run down Booth. But the 4 Tejano Twist is going to be my pick for second. For third, I look to the number 6 Anarchist. This horse is really interesting. If he could get his form back from 2023, when he was just getting nosed out in the Bing Crosby to the Chosen Brawn and winning the Pat O'Brien, he could be really tough in this spot. But, frankly, we haven't seen that version of Anarchist since 2023. He did run in Korea late in 2024, came back in February. Granted, he might have needed a race, and then he comes back, runs him down the hill on the turf, and he didn't run a step. So I'm going to take a shot with this horse for third just because I don't think the rest of this field is great. So I could either see Anarchist running huge or, running last. So it'll be interesting to see. But ultimately it is Booth over Tejano Twist over Anarchist in the Count Fleet Sprint.
All right, I definitely agree with some of those points. And like you said, always when you see a heavy favorite like that, you got to scan the field and see if you can find some way to beat him just to find some value. I unfortunately settled in your camp. I don't think there's anybody that can beat Booth for so many reasons like the ones you mentioned. Obviously loves Oaklawn 3 for 5 here, but just I think it's a horse that's coming into his own. I mean, he's only 4 years old, and it just looks like he's going to get better. I think this is a horse that we could definitely hear from in the Breeders' Cup Sprint Division towards the end of the year. He's also a very impressive-looking horse by Matoli out of a Bellamy Road mare, so a lot of speed put into this guy. Wire to wire the last 2 times. He's putting Eric Asmussen, he's putting his son on here, Steve is, so he's definitely trying to put his kid in the winner circle, so I think Booth's going to be too tough. Especially there's not really any speed to run with him early on either, as you pointed out. The other horse that I was looking at Happy American, but like you mentioned, he is in the day before, so he probably will end up scratching out of this spot. So I went to the one horse Devil's Tower on the rail there for my second spot in here. A very consistent runner. He's 7 years old, so a little more advanced in his career than Booth is. But he's 18 for 41 lifetime with 5 seconds and 2/3. So he knows how to win. He knows how to run a bang-up race. Last time running 5th by 2 lengths to a horse named Red Flag, who's pretty solid. I'd say Red Flag is probably worth 50 to 60,000. He's a pretty solid animal. So Devil's Tower, 15-1 morning line. He always fires. Like you said, this is going to be a shorter field. It's not that great of a race for a Grade 3 for being a $500,000 race. Outside of Booth, this is not a very tough field. And like you said, the only other class horse in here that I could think of is maybe Tejano Twist or Anarchist, but I think Anarchist is kind of on the downturn. Like you mentioned, he was very elite, but obviously Doug O'Neill shipping him a lot of different places. Maybe that's kind of taken a toll on him. So I am going to go to the one Devil's Tower, very consistent runner as my second spot there. Hopefully going to provide a lot of value under the heavy favorite Booth. In that third spot, I'm going to go for some more value here. And this may be kind of out of left field, but I'm going to go to the 5-horse Pain. He is a 10-year-old, and as we heard in Matt Dennerman's last call of his race, I think 2 starts back, he talked a lot about Pain and how much of a war horse he is. We don't have a lot of horses like that anymore. So Pain, very consistent runner, obviously coming out of a starter 20, now going into a Grade 3 stake race. He's going to have to up his game, but I think he's valid enough to run third in this spot. Payne's always going to come with his run. Watch him run third at a big number. So Payne there for me in the third spot. So Booth over the one horse Devil's Tower, over the 5 Payne for me, Liam, in the Count Fleet.
Yeah, no, let's get on to the Grade 1 Apple Blossom.
Let's do it.
1.25 million, obviously featuring the reigning horse of the year, Torpedo Anna. And like I said with the last race, when you see it was Booth at 3-5. In this instance, it's Torpedo Anna at 2-5. You always got to scan the field. Can we beat this horse? I think we knew before even the entries were taken that this was going to be my top selection, probably everyone's top selection. No, I think she's just too good for this field. She could sleepwalk around there and beat this field. And that's no disrespect. The 5 Wears My Ring ran 103 buyer last time out. This could be a horse that's really getting better. I mean, she won the Grade 3 Gazelle last year at Aqueduct, and then the next 2 starts she ran against Torpedo Anna and got beat 18 lengths and 22 lengths. So I think there's levels to this. I think Torpedo Anna is going to win. Could she get tested? Maybe, we'll see. I did go to the number 3 Free Like a Girl for second. She just ran second to Torpedo Anna last time out in the Azeri. She almost came level with her at the top of the stretch, and that was really interesting to see. Torpedo Anna just kind of turned her away, though, and ended up winning by 3.5. I think something similar is going to happen here. And then I went to the 5 Where's My Ring for third. I questioned how good of a race that was last time out. I know she won by 12. She threw up some soft fractions. I don't really know what was behind her in that race, if there was any runners. The number was huge. I think that's why a lot of people are going to be attracted to her. But 5-2 on the morning line just seems a little short for me when Free Like a Girl, who just ran second to her, is 10-1. I mean, this is a 7-horse field. No disrespect. You got a horse that was last seen in 2024 at Sunland, running for a $15,000 claim. So I don't think this is the strongest addition of the Apple Blossom, $1 million race. I think Torpedo Anna is going to win this race. And I think you're going to be lucky to get 1-9 on her.
That is very true, Liam. A lot of really solid points that I definitely agree with. Going off of Torpedo Anna's last start there, she did look like she was going to maybe we were going to be in for a little bit of a horse race with Free Like a Girl, who is an accomplished mare in her own right. I mean, she's 21 for 49 lifetime. They bought her for $5,500 at the sale back in 2020. So she's definitely earned her keep, and much, much more than that. But yeah, Torpedo Anna just looked like she had gears in that race. Like she hadn't even been asked yet. And then he said, hey, we got some competition. Why don't we run away from her? So I just think the horse of the year in here, I think the reason why this is kind of a soft race is because nobody wanted to ship in to run against her. But for 1.2 million, I would have thought it would kind of come up a little bit more tough. But Torpedo Anna is going to be on top for me over the 3-horse Free Like a Girl. I agree with you there. She's just too consistent not to put her in the second spot. So if you guys love Torpedo Anna, I'd say there's no one else you can include in that second spot other than the three. Free Like a Girl, we could definitely see something exactly like their last matchup against each other. And then I'm going to the 5, just like you, Liam. Where's My Ring for third? She did win by 12, like you said. But yeah, I mean, come on, Torpedo Anna, that's a much tougher matchup and a big ask for her in this spot. But I think she has a lot of talent. So, like you said, that big buyer. So I think including her for third is very safe. But hopefully, Free Like a Girl, we get 10-1 there and she makes those tickets pay, right? I mean, that second spot, you got to put Torpedo Anna, but definitely we can get some value in this race. So I think it's very key. 2-5 favorite. We can get some value in this spot, Lamb and the Blossom. So Torpedo Anna over the 3, Free Like a Girl for me. Over the 5, Where's My Ring? We are in sync with the Apple Blossom on this show today, folks.
Yeah, one more horse I did want to mention is the number 7, Wild Bout Hillary. This horse draws outside, and I think she's going to be on the lead in this spot. Last time we saw her out February 8th, winning the Bayakoa here at Oaklawn Park. And if you look at her past performances, every time she wins, she's on the lead. She goes wire to wire. And another thing to note, if you look at her running lines, she is a horse that tends to give into pressure. I don't know if it's a breathing problem or something. She's either winning, going wire to wire, or she's getting beat 30 lengths and she's being eased. So I definitely think the number 7, Wild Bout Hillary, will have the lead down the backstretch and round in the far turn. And we'll see how far she can take that. I definitely think it's going to be a Torpedo Anna and a couple others passing by her late.
Yeah, no, just like you said, Liam, I think Wild About Hillary, she's got one way to go, and that's to the front. It's just a matter, like you said, whether she can hold off her challengers in the lane there. She's never had to hold off a horse of the year, though, so we shall see how it all goes down at Oaklawn Park, as well as Keeneland Racecourse, the Jenny Wiley and Lexington. Don't miss out on the action this Saturday, folks. Make sure to get your wagers in wherever and however you can. Thank you guys so much for watching what we have to say on the Racing Rundown here. Definitely comment, like, and subscribe when you can. We are so grateful that you guys tune into the Racing Rundown. And until next time on another episode of Racing Rundown, thanks, guys.